I
guess
think
we're
I think we're
live.
live. Yeah. Are we live? Yeah. I can
I guess
see
so.
ourselves
Yeah,
there. Hey,
yeah,
what's up,
yeah, yeah.
folks? Yeah,
Andre,
finally. How are you doing, bro?
finally, it's a new
Dude,
house.
it's a new house. I'm really excited. I
Yeah,
mean,
me too.
I think we were saying on the phone that we have butterflies in the stomach again because it's been a while, right?
It's been quite a while. It's a new
Yeah,
house, and
definitely.
yeah, everything's new. It's wow. It's that feeling that we got a new house. We got Giselle's. We're at Giselle's house now.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, Giselle, thank you very much for hosting two crazy guys with their crazy thoughts.
Yeah,
We've been doing that for 5 years now, but without the proper partner. So, I'm glad
yeah,
we changed that part, right? Dude, I think we should
yeah.
introduce ourselves, right? For those who haven't really followed.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Chá Pedagógico 2024, and this is actually a new era. So this is episode one of a
Yep.
new era of Chá Pedagógico. Today is Sunday, January 28th,
Yes.
2024. I'm Rudy Mattiello. You can call me Rudy Mattiello, or you can call me Rodolfo. You can call me Rodolfo. You can call me Mattiello. You can whistle, you can, do whatever. And yeah,
Whatever
I'll
language you
reply.
prefer, right?
Whatever language you prefer, and I'll reply for
Yeah.
sure.
And I'm André Hedlund. I've been drinking tea since 2018, I think. So actually, I wanted to do something very
Dude,
quickly
I don't know if you
live
can hear
because
me,
I
but for
know
some reason I cannot hear
Rudy
you.
doesn't like that.
No,
Okay, I think you can you hear me, Rudy?
no,
Yeah?
no, no.
No? Okay, my microphone is on. I don't know. Maybe check your
No.
headset.
I mean, I was able to hear you,
Yeah?
but somehow your
Okay,
voice
can you guys hear
disappeared, your
us? I
sound
just want to make sure
disappeared.
that everyone can hear us. Yeah? I hope so.
Yeah,
Hello?
nothing.
Let me try to turn on again. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
yeah. Now, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so I think there was a glitch or anyway. So I
It's
just
a new
wanted to,
house.
it's a new house. We're still getting used to it. I just wanted to do something live here because I've been drinking tea since my master's in 2018. And I know Rudy doesn't like that. He thinks it's a little disgusting. You know what I'm going to do, right?
I know what you're
So
gonna do.
I'm drinking black tea because that's something I started doing in the UK. And I am just going to put some milk. Yeah, I'm going to add some milk, man. That's how you do it. So I just want to make sure that
Okay.
everybody gets that. If
Oh
you're watching us,
no,
you get that. It's
no,
actually
that's
pretty good.
yeah. So
Cheers, bro.
cheers.
So I'm André Hedlund. I've been doing a lot of stuff related to English teaching and especially teacher training nowadays. And I do have sort of an interest, I would say a passion for all things related to brain, mind, and language acquisition and all of that.
I
Exactly.
am a applied linguist. I deal with cognitive linguistics, so we both deal with cognition. And I was like, why don't we do something like that? And then we came up with this idea of Chá Pedagógico. Why Chá? Why tea? Well, first, because I don't drink coffee and I love tea, and we both studied in the UK, so why not?
Why not, right?
Pedagógico. So Chá
I still can't
Pedagógico.
believe you don't drink coffee, man. That's
I don't like coffee.
I need my coffee shots every day. Okay.
Yeah, I really can't drink coffee because if I do drink coffee, I think I don't know, I'm gonna throw myself through the window here because I'm going to be super agitated. More, my brain never stops. So if I do that, I think my brain is never going to stop.
Oh
And
my
then,
God.
yeah, that's where Chá Pedagógico came from 5 years ago. The Pedagógico was that this came to me when I was sleeping. I was asleep. I remember I said, okay, I got to text André because I had this crazy idea. He was on board with that.
Yeah.
And
I usually am.
he usually is.
That's when we get into trouble, right, bro? Yeah.
Yes. And the whole idea of Chá Pedagógico is to bring the studies that we have on neuroscience and applied linguistics or cognitive linguistics, which is what I do. And we're both professors. He teaches neuroscience at PUC Paraná. I teach cognitive linguistics at PUC Paraná as well.
Yeah.
We also have some researches going on, so all based on this cognitive realm. And the idea is to bring all these things together with our experiences because Andre and I know we don't look old, but we are kind of old. We got to embrace that. So it's been quite a while that we've been teaching languages. And of course, we always combine neuroscience, applied linguistics to classroom practices. And because we're super duper nerds, we always bring some pop culture with us.
And geeks, I have to tell them the difference, bro. You know, so everyone watching us right now, do you know the difference between a nerd and a geek? If you do, you can use the chat box. I will start telling you. But basically, a nerd is someone who's really into some kind of subject, you know. So if you are a nerd, you really like biology or chemistry or whatever, which probably means you get good grades at school, right? And usually they are correlated, to be very honest. But if you are a geek, then you like weird TV shows and books and you know, whatever, fantasy, sci-fi, anything that is very far away from what we are actually living, objective reality, let's say, right? So that's the big difference between being a nerd and a geek. Did I get that right, Rudy?
I guess you did. I guess you did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
So
and because we are,
this is Chá Pedagógico, right? So this is pretty much what you guys are going to see in the episodes. For those who are new, you know, for those who never saw the episodes before, so this is what Chá Pedagógico is all about. And for those who already know us, yeah, we got a new house. And by the way, for those guys, don't forget to interact with us. There's a very, very interesting poll in the chat box down here. Okay, for me it's down here. I don't know now if it's down here or if it's over there, but it's somewhere. There's a very nice poll, and there's a special surprise at the end of this episode. So yeah, it's gonna be super cool.
Yeah. Okay, so can everybody hear us? They mentioned that there was no sound before, but maybe I think that got fixed.
Yeah, I think it got fixed.
It got fixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today, really? Everybody's asking themselves, right? And I think this is really fitting, you know, that's the word I'm looking for. Because we talk about language acquisition all the time. We talk about language and thought. We talk about brain stuff, right? And what could be better than analyzing one of the most important classics of the 20th century, right? Written by this amazing author, George Orwell. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, I think anyway, one of my favorite books. I think one of everyone's favorite books, I would say, right? Because it's so powerful. There's such a symbology behind this book, and it was written in 1949. For those of you who
That
are
is
wondering,
so
so
cool. So cool.
there are major spoilers coming, but you had time to read it. It was published in 1949, so you had a lot of time to read this book, right? But one of the things that I would, I mean, if you haven't, I will try my best. We will try our best not to spoil everything, because even if it's a little bit spoiled, you can still read it and you can benefit from this amazing piece of work. It's really one of the most impactful books I've read in my life, because it deals with a totalitarian government, people losing their freedom, and this government that is all seeing, all hearing, always making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do, not questioning anything, and trying to influence what they can think of through language. And that's the part that we're going to focus on, right, Rudy? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And for those who um, have read the book before,
Yeah.
uh, throughout this book, the whole idea. Well, we're going to talk specifically about language right now because
Yeah.
that's what matters for the episode right now. But in the book, George Orwell says that uh, through characters and through the whole plot, they say,
Yep.
look, uh, you cannot use this kind of language. There's a new language you guys have to use, and this government called
Yeah.
the party. They started encouraging people to use this new language, and the name of this new language was no speak, and the language that they used before was called old speak. Okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
and the George Orwell was amazing in that because uh, he pretty much was able to tell what his point of view on language acquisition was
Yeah.
without telling everyone what his point of view of language acquisition was. That was amazing because that's pretty much what George Orwell thought. He said in one of his books, not 1984, but one of his books on language acquisition, even though he was not a linguist. He said,
That's amazing.
yeah,
When you told me that, I was like, okay, so George Orwell had something on language acquisition, right?
yeah,
A lot of people didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he said his criticism on language acquisition was that
Yeah.
we learn languages actually through external interference.
Yeah.
All right. Which is, by the way, the question that we're asking down here in the chat box. Okay. So,
We have a poll. Yeah.
we have a poll there. So take a look at that later or as you watch us.
Yeah.
And that is not fair, or that wouldn't be very accurate, because if we learn a
Yeah.
language through external interferences, then what we're learning is not a language. What we're learning is just, actually, we're not learning anything, he says. We're just inheriting things. Because,
And man.
yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah. I was just going to situate people, because basically what Rudy's talking about has to do with the premise of the book, right? So,
Mhm.
as he said, at some point in history, everyone spoke standard English, and they refer to that as old speak, right? So that's the language that we're using right now. However, because the government really wants to control people's thoughts, they started eliminating some words and reducing the vocabulary, and they call it newspeak, right? So
Mhm.
basically, what they're trying to do is neutralize certain words, remove adjectives. So to give an example, instead of having, I think I saw that in a video a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to my students about this. So instead of having warm and cold, they would just have cold, and warm would be uncold, And so they call that something. So basically, they are trying to eliminate the warmth, let's say, of the language,
Yeah.
the the fluff of the language, so that people can use the language in a much more objective way according to what they're proposing, but at the same time not be able to think certain things.
Yes.
So they cannot think about things like liberty or warm, because warm is, well, let's say a positive word, right?
Yes.
So let's think
Yes.
of cold, but then if it's not cold, it's uncold.
Yes.
And that, in a way, just to wrap up, and then Rudy can carry on, I think that, in a way, has a lot to do with one of the biggest debates in applied linguistics and neurolinguistics in the last, I don't know, man, like many decades, right? So there,
I would say 50 years.
50 years or more, because
Yes.
when we think of 50 years now, yeah, it's 2024 now, right? So yeah, it
Yeah,
probably
I'm not
started
good. I'm not good with numbers. So.
probably started back in the because he wrote the book in 49, so it started in the
So yeah.
30s,
So
40s,
maybe
and then of
yes.
course
Yes.
there were more people studying how languages are acquired, and then we can talk a little bit about the difference between language acquisition and learning. But it's really
Yeah.
the idea that your thoughts are limited by the extent of your language.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts are determined by your language, or at
Mm-hmm.
least influenced by your language. So depending
Yes.
on the language you have, you are able or not able to have certain thoughts. That's the idea, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, what George Orwell said about language acquisition was pretty much like this: like, we have a spoon here, there's a spoon here, right? There's a spoon. And what his questioning is, why do we call this a spoon? Because, I mean, in Portuguese is colher. All right. So let's use the Portuguese word. Why do we call it colher? You know, colher. It doesn't make any sense. According to George Orwell's perspective on language acquisition, when we're learning a new language, we would, we were supposed to be actually to be able to look at the things, the subject right now, and reason upon this, observe, experience, and experiment with this object. And then we would use our language, the language that we would be learning or developing at the moment, in order to say, okay, so I'm going to call this recipiente bucal de líquido. You know, so this is pretty much what George Orwell wanted everybody to do. But instead, what we have is the external influence saying that the name of this is colher or spoon.
Exactly.
And again,
Yeah.
he is against that because, according to his perspective on language acquisition, on development of language, he says, no, 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 no. What we're doing, we're limiting the thoughts of our kids, or we had, according to him again, we
Yep.
had our thoughts limited because this external influence is limiting our thoughts. But and
Yeah.
then the whole idea, I know, I don't know if you guys have ever read Marcelo Marmelo Martelo, which is a classic, it's a Brazilian classic for kids.
Yeah.
Ruth Rocha, which is the author of Marcelo Marmelo Martelo, she does that because the character Marcelo Marmelo Martelo, that's his name, he does that.
Yeah.
So he sees things, he experiments things, and based on his perspective, he calls things, you know, using the language. So he doesn't let himself be influenced by anyone else, any other being on the planet. There's this book. Disal has this book, by the way. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Read this book because this,
Yeah.
even though this book is directed at kids, everybody can read this book because it's amazing. It's really, really cool. And there's also a series on Amazon Prime, if I'm not wrong. And one of the things that Marcelo does is he doesn't call mesa table. He calls
Yep.
it apoiador. Why? Because it makes more sense to him. He doesn't
Yeah.
call milk milk because for him, milk doesn't make any sense. He calls it suco de vaca or cow juice because it makes more sense. So that's pretty much what
It's so
Orwell
funny, man.
wanted
Yeah.
us to do
Yeah.
because we would experience and experiment with all these things around us, all these
Yeah.
things that are part of the universe. And then we would use the language that we're developing to actually um, generate words and generate sentences and all these things without any influence, without any external influence. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
And
pretty much what Orwell wanted us to do.
exactly. And that, so that brings me back to the idea that we've been discussing for a while. We wrote a text together as well on language and thought, and Rudy published a very cool article, basically provoking Steven Pinker, right, Rudy?
Oh boy,
So the title was "Our Language Has No Thought."
he
We're
hates
actually
me.
thinking he doesn't like you, but anyway. And the idea comes from two very important researchers when we think of linguistics, applied linguistics, neuroscience, neurolinguistics, Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Worf, right? So that and
I have a very
yeah,
funny thing about Benji Worf.
yeah.
No, go ahead, go
What's
ahead.
that? No, it's okay. So and you'll tell later. But the
Yeah.
idea is that, so, as we were explaining, our language determines our thoughts. So, that's linguistic determinism, right? So, that says that basically, if you do not have the word to express or to convey something, then you cannot think it because it's not part of your linguistic repertoire, right? So, that's the hard line Sapir-Whorf theory or hypothesis, as they called it, right? Which means that if you are, let's say, I'll give you two examples from actual studies that happened a while ago. So there is a people, a civilization called the Dunny people. So they come from Indonesia, the archipelagos, somewhere in southern Asia, and they don't have names for colors like we do. We all have a lot of words for different colors, right? So we can very easily identify green and blue and whatever color. But those people, they only have two words for colors, Mili and Mola, which is very funny and weird if you think about it. So Mili, those are the colors that refer to, like cold colors related to the forest, the greens and the blues, the ocean and all of that, right? The sea. And Mola, I think they are the warm colors, for earth, for tree trunks and things like that, the sun and all of that. So the idea is, if they don't have words for other colors, can they see those colors? Do those colors exist for them? That's linguistic determinism, right? And before we give you the answers, folks, why don't you tell us? Do you think the Dunny people, and that's one example. There are others, There are, for example, the Pirahan in the
Yeah,
Amazon. A
yeah.
lot of people have heard of them, some haven't. So the Pirahan don't really have verb tenses, So they have a very, very simple language with just a couple of sounds. When compared to English or Portuguese, it's like very, very simple. And they cannot really talk about the future. So they don't have the verb tense. They don't talk about the future. Does that mean that they experience time differently from us? So I'll give you folks some time as we are discussing here, and then Rudy will take over so you can
I'm gonna
add your comments here in
as
the chat box.
yes
Okay. Yeah.
as you guys use the chat box to interact here with us, and please do so. Don't
Yeah.
forget there's a poll there.
And
There's
just a reminder, Rudy, before we forget, by the way, we are going to raffle this
yeah,
amazing book by
yeah,
Book One. Okay.
yeah.
So Giselle is going to do that. We can't forget, right? So we have the link that is going to pop up somewhere in the chat.
It's already on the chat box.
It's already there. Okay. So make sure you add your names because we're going to raffle this amazing book. I have this because it's beautiful hardcover. It was produced by Book One Excelsior. Look at that. That's amazing, right? So you can get
Yeah.
this book. Make sure you fill out the form, okay? So go
But
ahead, man.
this is the kind of
Yeah.
book. This is even though this is not a coffee table book, but this is one of the kind of
Yeah.
books that you read it and you put it on your coffee table because
Yeah.
it's really
Because it
beautiful.
looks good, right? It's
It
just
looks
beautiful.
good and the content is
Yeah.
amazing. But as you guys interact
Yeah.
with us here in the chat box, let me tell you guys something very interesting about Benji Worf. Benji
Yeah.
Worf was not a linguist. Benji Worf was not related to education whatsoever. He was a chemist and he worked
Ah.
his entire life as a chemist. You know, he was a chemist, but the whole thing about uh, this mind, this thought and language that came from Worf was that in one of the companies that he worked for as a chemist,
Yeah.
there were some signs and some warnings, because the company didn't want the workers to have any kind of accident, and there were some warnings like be careful, this is acetate,
Yeah.
don't do this, or wear gloves here, those kind of warnings that we have
Yeah.
all around any industry, any factory. And then he started analyzing the warnings and he was like, wait a minute, what if this warning is not um, connected to what the workers actually understand? You see, so that's pretty much what he did, and that's pretty much how he started analyzing language. And
Yeah.
to be super cool, he was invited for several times to work as a professor, uh, as a linguist, and he declined all of them. All of them. He declined. He said, no, I'm not a linguist. No, there's no way. I'm not a linguist. I'm a chemist. And he worked his entire life as a chemist. He never worked a single fully work. Of course, he published many things. He participated in many lectures and all these things. Lachudo, I
Yeah.
can see Erika. Erika said Lachudo on the chat box. Yes, that's it. Lachudo.
Lachudo,
Lachudo
yes,
is
the
the
name
name.
of the dog.
Yes, the name of the dog.
Exactly.
That was so cool. So
Awesome.
that's the thing. He started
Yeah.
from this. And of course, I think,
Yeah.
of course, this is really saying here the whole idea behind, and now it's a pure Worf theory, and
Yeah.
this is just a theory, and we are analyzing the theory here, is that our thoughts are determined by our language. But wouldn't it be the other way around? I mean, wouldn't it
Huh.
be like the language is only, um, I'm going to use a terrible expression here, but the language is a mere expression of our thought. So we
Uh-huh.
express our thought through language. That's the whole thing. So, of
Yeah.
course, what George Orwell said, and I gave the example of Marcelo Martello, that we learn language, we develop language under external influences, and that's not so nice, yada, yada, yada. Yes, that's a romantic view of language acquisition. But
Yeah.
is that so bad? I mean, I don't think that's that bad.
You know what, bro? I was thinking of so when I started studying more about how humans have developed this amazing uh, a linguistic competence, over the course of evolution. So if you think about why do we have such complex language compared to other animals, right? Do animals even have language? Can we say that? So that's a debate. It's ongoing, right? And if we look at linguistics and we think about what makes a language, at least according to us humans, right? So we have a bunch of things like, think of morphology, syntax, think of semantics, pragmatics, and even phonetics, right? So all of those are essential parts of what make a language according to us, because other languages from other planets maybe might be very different, like like Arrival. We always have to talk about Arrival, right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched the movie with Amy Adams as a very important linguist,
Yeah.
and aliens, please do. It's an amazing book. It's really about Sapir Whorf. And so yeah, language is.
And we wrote something about that. We wrote an
We
article about
did,
this.
right?
So there's an
wrote
article that you guys can read. So you
Yeah.
watch the film and then you read our article.
Yeah, please watch the film first. Otherwise, major spoilers again. We don't want to spoil your experience because it's such a great movie. It's an amazing movie, really. But yeah, we have been developing language and spoken language, if you think about it, for a very long time, according to archaeological records. So if you think about Homo erectus, so I always tell my students at PUC are tired of hearing anything about Homo erectus because we always talk about Homo erectus, But think about the advantage of actually being able to stand, bipedalism, right? And having, so if you are watching us right now, you can see that we are always using our hands, body language, gestures, gesticulating, all of those things. We do that very naturally as part of communication, right? So according to the most accepted theory today, that's how we got started, with body language, with sign language. And then it's not overnight, right? It's a very long process, many years. But then we started focusing our language here. So I'm talking about our vocal tract, our vocal apparatus, right? And then it became speech. And because we have such an amazing range, we can make a lot of different sounds. It makes sense for us to focus language here while our hands are free, so we can do whatever, right? So we can communicate via sound, and we can use our hands to do anything else. And I always tell people this: you are not aware, folks, of what we're doing right now is right, Rudy. I always tell people what we are doing right now. It's not just as simplistic as one might think. It's actually amazing because Rudy and I are transmitting our thoughts from our brains into your brain right now using sounds. We're making a bunch of sounds.
Yes.
And those sounds are being captured by our brand new microphones. Thank you, Disal. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Being converted into different electrical signals, and then traveling, I don't know how many miles. I have no idea where you're connecting from. And you can understand those sounds. So we're putting thoughts inside your heads. And those thoughts, some of the thoughts we're putting into your heads are actually our own thoughts. But a lot of thoughts, they came from those guys we mentioned, like Sapir, Worf, George Orwell. We read them. So we decoded those little drawings on paper. We understood what they're saying. We converted that into thoughts, and we can transmit that through language. It's amazing what we can do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And having said that, again, I think there was a poor choice of words when Orwell, and yes, when we say oral, Anna, we're talking about George Orwell. Yeah, he's the one. There was a poor choice of words, not in Orwell, but in Worf's studies, because he said that our thoughts are determined by the language. But what I really think, and I have been revisiting George Worf's studies because of this very nice episode that we're promoting right now. I really think that he was thinking about our thoughts are expressed by language and not necessarily by determined. I think it was a very poor choice of words by Benji Worf.
Definitely.
And yes, I have never met Benjamin Worf, but yes, I'm calling him Benji Worf because it's really, really freaking cool. And it's fun. It's so young. I almost cursed.
Language. Remember
language.
Captain America.
Yes. Sorry, guys.
Language.
So, so Benji Worf.
Come on.
Yeah. Yes, almost. I was this close to swearing, live to several people.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Benji Worf. So I wouldn't say he really thought that our thoughts are determined by
Yeah.
language. I really believe revisiting his material that he was trying to say our thoughts are
Yeah.
expressed, and again,
Definitely.
guys, we have to remember Orwell wrote his book in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Worf, we're talking pretty much about the same decades, some decades before.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much what the 50s, the 40s, the 50s. Come on, Andre, help me out
Yeah,
here.
it was so
60,
if
70
I'm
years,
not mistaken, he
60, 70
published
years ago.
1949. So that was, yeah, we're really bad at math like
Yeah.
this.
So
We're
you guys
English
help us.
teachers.
So it's over
So
7 decades. And if it's
so I
wrong,
think,
please
yeah,
help
it's
us out here.
7 decades. Yeah,
Yeah,
73
7 decades.
years ago,
So
74
in
years ago. Yeah.
70 years ago,
Yeah.
imagine the scenario for those who really wanted to study the brain 70 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
We didn't
you
have
pretty much
neuroimaging
there
studies,
was
folks.
there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
nothing 70 years ago, and
Yeah.
those guys were really pioneers. They trailblazed the whole thing. So if we're here right now talking about all these things 70 years later,
Yeah.
it's because those guys 70 years ago, they were trailblazers. But
True.
again, that doesn't mean just because we don't say something, that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to think of something.
Yes.
Because, for
And
example, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, yeah, I was going to give an example that is funny and memorable because I tell my Pookie students that there's a word in Finnish. It's an actual word, just one word, and it's pronounced, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh boy.
kalsari
Oh
kenet.
boy.
Kalsari kenet.
Here he
Yeah,
goes.
so it's something that is should be fun. I think many of us have done it, and but it basically means that instead of going out with friends to a pub, you choose to stay home in your underwear drinking. So it's an entire thought line of thought here, a string of thought, but
I think I'm
it's just one
Finnish.
word.
I think my soul is
Kalsari
Finnish.
Kennet. Yeah. But you got so since okay, Rudy will carry on, but you probably know a word in another language that we
Yeah.
cannot really translate literally into Portuguese or English. So
Yeah.
it's just one word, but it expresses something really complex, like ikigai, in
Yeah.
Japanese, right?
Yes.
Or komorebi or something like
We
that.
do
Yeah,
have one word in Portuguese that can
yeah,
barely be translated or can barely be expressed in other
yeah,
languages, which is
yeah,
saudade,
yeah, exactly. And
because
we
the
can,
whole
as a
point,
noun, you can say
yeah,
we miss something, but it's not
but it's a
exactly
verb.
right. Yeah,
But then it's a
exactly.
verb,
So as a noun, yeah,
and
true.
again, it doesn't actually have the same meaning, the exact same
Yeah,
meaning as saudade. It's something that's
yeah,
very approximate.
yeah,
But that's again, but that the whole discussion here is about the external influences, because
yeah,
Orwell criticized that. But again, if we think that very thoroughly, it wouldn't be very nice if we didn't have any kind of external influence. Because let's use Martello again, for example, because George Orwell was great, but Martello is just as great, and it's ours. It's Brazilian. Um,
yeah,
Imagine I'm using some sort of repertoire that I designed myself. Andre is going to use a different kind of repertoire that he designed himself. You guys are going to, each and every one of you guys watching us right now, and if you're watching the recording, the same, you're going
yep,
to use your own repertoires that you guys designed yourselves. Um, uh, we wouldn't be able to communicate. It would be very, very hard for us to communicate, because I would say, let's say that I don't want to use the word table. I want to use the word choriforimpula, and I'm going to use the word choriforimpula, and I'm going to say, oh, give me a moment because I got to get my tea. My mug is on the choriforimpula. You're going to be looking at me like, what? What's Rudy
yeah,
talking about? So
yeah,
the external influences are good to some
yep.
extent, because this is what is going to make us communicate.
And
Okay.
Rudy, so the kids do that. I think, especially nowadays, we are going through this very interesting era in Brazil of, bilingual schools, and kids are always coming up with new words all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that concerns parents, but that's
Hmm.
actually natural. Okay, take it easy,
Hmm.
parents. Your kids are
Yes.
doing fine. Okay, but then they have to conform to the convention, and that's because there has to be common ground for communication to take place. Otherwise, communication breakdown, right? Like
Yeah.
Rudy said, we will have to reach a consensus at some point, so that we know that whatever I am using means something to the listener or to the reader, and they can understand that thought that I'm trying to transmit. That's the whole point, right? So
Yeah.
even though you might not have the proper word to express that thought, you can make a longer construction, maybe, like, Kalsari Kennett. I had to use a bunch of words to explain what it is, but you can understand that. I put that thought in your head because I used the common ground repertoire that we all share. And that's what communication is all about, using
Yes.
things that everybody has so we can share, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a matter of scope because, again, um what is a scope? So you guys have, if you have some students, some of my students from PUC, Paraná,
Yep.
of cognitive linguistics, they're going to be like, oh, yes, I remember Rudy telling me this in one of his crazy classes. But what is a scope? A scope is pretty much, have you guys ever seen the Russian doll? What's a Russian doll?
Oh
It's a big
yeah.
doll, and then you open the doll. There's a smaller one, and then you open the smaller one. There's a smaller one, and a smaller one, and
Yeah.
a smaller one. So that's pretty much what a Russian doll is. Scope is
Yeah.
pretty much like this. A linguistic scope is pretty much like this. So, for example, we have a category called body, and then inside the category of body, we have, let's say, arm. And then inside the category of arm, I have hands. And then
Yeah.
inside the category of hands, I have fingers. And then inside the category of fingers, I have nails or fingernails. So that's pretty much what a scope is. And then imagine the when we communicate, if I say, for example, oh, uh, I hurt my body, your guys
Yep.
are going to understand. Yes, I hurt my body. But then if I say, oh, I hurt my fingernail, you're going to be like, what? You hurt your fingernail? What are you
Okay.
talking about? But logically, it makes sense. Why? Because fingernail is inside a category that's inside another category that's inside another category that's inside a big category called body. So logically, it does make sense if I say, I hurt my fingernail. But because it's so far in the scope, we're going to have a communication breakdown, you know. Um, every time I say communication breakdown, I think of Led Zeppelin song.
Led Zeppelin. That I
Communication
was thinking the same
breakdown.
thing. That's a great song. Yeah. Yeah.
My
By the way, we like
goodness.
rock and roll, folks. Yeah, and
Yeah, we do
blues,
like
and
rock and
yeah,
roll blues and all these, crazy things and
yeah. I
everything.
was thinking
So,
about that too.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking about Led Zeppelin. Jeez, that's why I don't
And
drink
now,
coffee.
I'm thinking about Black Dog. Because it's one of my favorite songs. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on.
That's why I don't drink coffee. My mind is always, completely insane. So
Yeah.
that's too far in the scope. So
Yeah.
in this case, it's all right to have external influences when we're developing a language, because
Yeah.
then we would be able to say, to have a starting point, a bigger category or a bigger Russian doll. But still,
Yeah.
if you guys are teachers or language teachers or any kind of teacher whatsoever here, this doesn't mean that we have to trim or clip the
Yeah.
wings of our students. Don't break their creativity. That's not what we're talking whatsoever. They have to be creative and they have to experiment with the language and with the language. This is really
Yeah.
important. But the thing is, we as teachers, I'm thinking, or as adults, if you consider a first language, then we're going to be the linguistic model for kids. This external influence would serve as I was saying, the starting point. And then if we don't cut the creativity of our
Yeah.
students, they're going to be able to be very creative, linguistically speaking, of course. They're going to be very creative, and then they'll be able to generate maybe new words,
Exactly.
new constructions, and all these things. And they're
Yeah.
going to insert maybe in that big Russian doll inside that
Yeah.
scope. But they will still have a
And
scope that
yeah,
will allow them to communicate with everyone else.
perfect. And I just one reminder, and then I want to comment on something Rudy just said. So everyone, you can still get this book, this beautiful book here. Just I was going to send one. Of course, if you're in Brazil, okay. So if there are people from other countries here, thank you so much for joining us. We love you, but you are not going to get this book, all right? And
But we're gonna find a way somehow in the future. We're gonna
yeah,
find a way to deliver this book, or you can come to Brazil. It's gonna be
come to
super cool to
Brazil.
have you
That's
guys.
better. And just make sure you access the form, fill out the form. You have 5 minutes, by the way, okay, so that we can start the raffle.
Yeah,
But one of
we're
yep,
going to give away this book. We're going to give away two
yes,
books live. It's gonna be here. You guys are
we're
gonna
going.
be,
Yeah,
with us.
exactly.
You're gonna
And
see who the
there,
winner is.
yeah, there's another book, and then you're gonna have to do something throughout the week, and we're going to tell you. Don't worry. So if you don't
Yes.
get the book today, you might still get it. If you can't get the book, by the way, there's a huge discount on Giselle's website. Okay,
Mhm.
I still think you should buy the book because it's an amazing book. It's beautiful. It's such a great story, you know. But
Yes.
anyway, one of the things that I wanted to say has a lot to do with answering what I asked before. If we don't have the words to express certain things, can we think those things? Yes, of course we can. And I think we proved that, right, Rudy? I
Yeah.
just put a new thought in your head. Drinking on your own, in your underwear, when you're supposed to go out with your friends. And there's a word for that in Finnish, but there's no word for that in Portuguese or English, but I can still explain that to you using a bunch of words.
Yes.
So the whole premise behind 1984 is that if we make language as simple and objective as possible, and we eliminate words that refer to, liberties and positive adjectives and all of that, people will be better and more easily controlled and manipulated, right? Brainwashed, basically. And that's what they're trying to do. So, Newspeak, there's a scene in the book that the protagonist, Winston Smith, so he's
Mhm.
having lunch, and then he's talking to the guy who's working on the new edition of the Newspeak dictionary,
Yes.
Basically, what they're trying to do is manipulate and change language. And that's one front, right? The other front is that Winston himself works by changing the news all the time. So he's always going back and changing the news so that people don't have a sense of history. They don't know what's going on. They think there's a war going on. That's what they're
Mhm.
advertising on TV. They have a device, a TV screen inside their homes that is always watching them. So the big brother is watching you, right?
Yes.
So that they can control what they do, they can see what they do, they can control what they think. And there is something very, very interesting that, and then I can wrap up this part here. They call it doublethink. So doublethink
Yes.
is the idea that you can hold two opposing premises at once simultaneously in your head and actually believe them. So you can think that this is true, but you can also believe that the opposite is also equally true. And that has a lot to do with something that in psychology we call bias. It's a cognitive bias, right? So you can have different ideas. You can actually say that, I believe that this should happen, but then you do things that are against what you just said. So that makes you a, I don't know, hypocrite maybe. But
Yeah.
the idea is that, yeah, you can, or maybe you're not using logic to understand what you're saying. But yeah, language is not as objective as one might think. It's very ambiguous as well,
Yeah.
very emotional. But like Rudy said, there has to be a common ground. So, we're going to learn from exposure from our parents, from the community, because we're there, we're listening to the language, we are acquiring the language, right? You cannot create your own language. Otherwise, people will not get what you have to say, right, Rudy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I think I was taking a look at the chat box here, and some
Yeah.
people have asked us some questions. And Lucky School, is scope similar to context? Not
Yeah.
really, no.
Look
Context
at
is
that, huh?
about situation. It's a situational aspect. Okay. Scope is really about the language. All right. So as I was saying, you have uh, the a group called body, and then inserted in this group you have arm, and then inserted in the group arm you have hand, and then inserted in the word in the category of hand you have fingers, and then inside it you have fingernails, and then you inside this another one and another one. It's pretty much an infinite. You can have an infinite number of groups in scope. So no, context is more about the situation, and not what you were going to do, which is also different
Yeah.
from the you have context, and then you have the function, you know. So scope
Yeah.
is more linguistic, context is more situational, and you also have function. All right. And there's one that Tassia Lorena, Tassia is
Oh.
asking you about, I think, the Pirahan, right?
Okay, that's a good one, Tassia. Yeah, so I can go back to the Piraha and the Dani people to answer. So, because their language does not have verb tenses, the Pirahan language, so they don't really talk about the future. It's very, we call it a hedonistic language. It's pretty much about the present. Can they think about the future if they don't have the verb tense to talk about the future? Yes, they can. So that's one of the pioneers who studied the the Pirahan actually was Dan Everett, very controversial guy. So he came. So just to give you an idea, because this is an actually very interesting story, I think. So he came from the United States to evangelize the Pirahan. So he was a Christian missionary, and he wanted to convert everyone into Christianity, right? And
Yeah.
what happened is that they converted him into atheism, because for the Piraha, it was really very difficult to think of a final destination that is so far apart from their actual reality, a promise, and to think that someone thousands of years ago said something that is the way you should live your life.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's all about the land, it's all about the food that they can get. They don't have numerals in their language, so they cannot really count. They cannot really tell the difference, but they can learn. Here's the thing: if you teach them, they can learn.
Of
We've
course.
seen that. The same thing with the Dani people. So
Yes.
they show a picture of different colors, and they show colors that are very, very similar within the same category for the Dani people, like Mili or Mola, So they show like yellow and red. They're Mola, So yellow and red couldn't be more different for us, right? We can very easily spot yellow and red. Can the Dani people spot that, even though it's the same category? Yes, they can. If I mean, they can tell it's different. They just don't have the word to say this is this and this is that, right? So you can teach them. It might take a while for them to internalize that. So the big thing here is you will have certain words in your culture because of the values that you have. So words are basically created, and it's a social thing, right, Rudy? It's
Yes.
not like someone,
And
hey, I'm
and
going to create. Yeah, no,
and
it
that
happens in
and that's
interaction.
why
Yeah,
I really believe that Benjamin Worf's choice of words was very, very poor, because I
yeah,
really believe that he didn't want to say that our thoughts are determined by language, but
yeah.
that our thoughts are
Influence, right?
expressed through
Expressed, exactly.
language. So,
Yeah,
as André said, for them, they don't know that there are other colors. And Worf
yeah,
also studied a group called Hopi, Hopi is
Yes.
another group
Yeah.
that he studied as well, and it's the same. They don't have, for example, a specific expression for time. So
Yeah.
they perceive time in a different way, and they express they use the language that they have in order to express what they believe time is all about. So again,
Yeah.
it's not that our thoughts are determined by our language. Our thoughts are expressed through the language. And if
Yes.
we don't have the words to express something that we already have in our minds, we can create the word.
We come up
And
with the word,
we
right?
come up
Yeah.
with a
All
word,
the
or we
time.
learn, or we can
Yeah.
incorporate from different languages. We
Like
incorporate words
ris.
from different languages here in Brazil all the time. To
Yeah.
Portuguese, for example, to
Yeah.
delete, deletar. We incorporated that. We didn't
Exactly.
have that in Portuguese, even though we had similar words that express the exact same thought, but we incorporated that, and that's
Yep.
okay. I mean, I'm
And
not
and
saying
and
that
dude.
we
Yeah.
should, you know, get rid
Yep.
of every Portuguese word. No, I'm not saying
No.
that. I'm saying that everything is flexible. The good thing about language is that
Yes.
it's flexible. And why is it flexible? Because it deals with our minds, and our minds must be
Exactly.
flexible. And one more time, again, guys, once again, don't in your classes, when you're dealing with your students, we're not saying that your
Yeah.
students are not supposed to be very creative. No,
Yeah.
instill that, let them be very creative, but at the same
Exactly.
time be a very nice linguistic model, so that you become the starting point to something greater, to some
That's it.
repertoire that's going to be super enhanced.
And
It's not like
yep.
George Orwell said. He went to the extreme, to the romantic view of, he well, he had some perspectives about communities and society in general. So he was very
Yep.
romantic. He went to the very extreme of language acquisition in his perspective, which is zero external interference whatsoever. No, sorry, no external interference whatsoever. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it shouldn't be like that, especially because this social exchange, we've said that so many times, but I'm going to repeat it. This social
Yeah.
exchange is what's going to trigger our cognitive activities. So we need that.
Yeah.
We need external interferences.
Yeah. And we are going to come to a consensus through social interaction because we're human beings, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that's the thing. Language is this amazing tool that we can use. We have mastered it. No other animal has mastered language to the
Yes.
degree that we have. And we use that tool to record what our thoughts have been, our mind was like. And then we can leave that behind for others, new generations, to start from that point, right? So that's the thing that language can do that is amazing, that animals cannot do. We can
Yeah.
record the past through language and leave this legacy behind. And then people who come after us, they can start from there. That Carl
Yes.
Sagan used to say that about books. Think about what you can find inside a book, a bunch
Yes.
of lines, a bunch of drawings, that actually means something because we decode that written language into actual thoughts, and we learn from books. So I can have a conversation with an author who's been dead for thousands of years. That's
Yes.
amazing. So this is what
Yes.
we're working with. And the one thing that we have to, so we have to start wrapping up. The one thing, yeah. Otherwise we get too excited, guys, and then we keep talking for
Again,
hours.
we never did that
We never do
before.
that, right, Rudy? But anyway,
Right.
but the
No.
thing is, we cannot really control language as much as people should think. Like the
Yeah.
Big Brother trying to control language and get rid of some words and simplifying things and getting rid of adjectives, especially positive adjectives. Does that mean you cannot think of freedom or democracy or love and things like that? No, you can still think, you can still feel those things. There are
Yeah.
human emotions and feelings and all of that, and we will come up with those words if need be.
Yes.
At some point,
Yes.
we will come up with those words because we can still think those words. So just remember that. A lot of people are trying to stop certain language changes that are coming. I'm sorry to tell you, folks, you can't. Language will keep evolving, right?
Yes.
Because language will represent the status quo of the zeitgeist, of an era, right? The
Yes.
spirit of an era. Language will follow whatever we're doing. So if there's a scientific discovery, we will come up with language to talk about that. If there's a new technology, we will come up with language to talk about that. If we have changed the way we look at society, people, we will come up with language to
Yes.
talk about that. That's how language works,
Exactly.
Rudy,
Exactly.
that's it, bro.
Before we wrap up, there are
Yeah.
so many things, so many important things. I was taking a look as André was talking to you guys. I was taking a look. We've had around 40 people watching us, live right now. We have around 40 people, but
Okay.
we only have 18 likes. I mean, I'm not good at math, but why?
Like the channel, everybody. Yeah.
I can see the thumbs up icon here. There's
maybe
number
they didn't
18.
like us, bro. Yeah.
Didn't you like us? Didn't you like the episode? I mean, I'm so sorry to be the bearer of bad news. If you didn't like the episode, come on, guys. We're going to be here for quite a while because Chá Pedagógico is going to happen not every Sunday, but
not every Sunday, but
not every Sunday yet, but one Sunday a month. So we'll be back in February. Okay.
Possibly the last Sunday, by the way. That's what we're trying.
That's what I was about to tell.
The last Sunday.
Every last Sunday of the month. Every last Sunday of the month. Exactly. I forgot about that. So every last Sunday of the month. So come on. I can see very low number of likes. Like the episode because this is going to help us a lot. Subscribe to the channel because when you subscribe to the channel and you hit the little bell icon, you're going to be notified every time Chá Pedagógico is on air. And please do that. This is really nice. And there are also many other contents on the channel that you guys are going to love. André has a content there in the channel. I also have a solo content on the channel as well. We fly solo sometimes too.
I'm actually writing our Instagram profiles right now so people can start following us, right?
Yes.
So keep talking, man.
Stay here. Stay here because we're going to give away 2 copies of 1984, George Orwell's 1984. All right, guys. So don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Stay here. Stay here. All right, guys. Stay right where you are. Don't move.
Yeah.
Because we're going
I think Jessica. Hello, Jessica's there.
Jessica's
she's not going to say anything. Yeah, she's the big sister, big boss.
Okay, let me get rid of this reaction stuff. Because
Lyrica, everybody who's helping us, thank you very much. We couldn't do this as cool as
I think the big sister is going to help
you.
us with the copies of.
So the big sister is going to
there she
share.
Is. The big sister, the big boss.
She's going to share the screen here, and we're going to.
Boss.
Rudy, you want to do the honors, or should I? You do it.
You go ahead.
No, you can do it. Come on. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just
read
a
the winner.
Second. Just a second, because I got to embiggen.
Yeah.
The.
Let's see.
Okay.
Can you see
Big
it?
sis, Jesse, please.
Go ahead, Jessica. Oh,
yes.
I'm excited to see who's going to win. Yeah.
Jessica, I don't know. For me, it's like super, super small. Oh, no, wait. It's.
Yeah. Okay, she's going to share. Okay.
So is it? I can see that Tassia is one of them.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the other one?
Kata.
Can you see it, André?
Kata, okay. But Kata's in Italy, so no book for you, Kata. Kata is a friend. I'm sorry. So maybe next time when you come to Brazil, we'll have. But Tassia, is it Tassia? Tassia Kelly, da Cunha Lorena.
Tassia Kelly. Yes.
You get the book.
If you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Jessica. If you could please choose another name because Tassia, yes, but Kata is in Italy, so Kata is not
so another one for you, Tassia. Okay, we have to choose another one. I'm sorry.
And by the way, and then maybe our big sister can give us the final result for the poll because we had 55 votes.
Yeah,
55 votes.
Oh wow. Okay, so
Wow,
let's see.
55 of it and only 18 likes. Come on, didn't like this number.
So we have another go
Sergio
for the
Coutinho.
raffle. Let's
Sergio
take a look.
Coutinho. Sergio Coutinho. There he is. So Sergio
Yes.
Coutinho. So you got Sergio Coutinho and Tassia. You guys have just got
You got
the
this
amazing
amazing
book,
1984
George
edition.
Orwell's 1984
Yeah.
Excelsior Book 1 edition.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Like,
Amazing.
can I show very quickly, Rudy, what it looks? So inside the book, it's actually a beautiful work. So very quickly, I know some
Good.
people will probably just listen to us. But look at this. Look at the work, huh? That's
It's
really
beautiful.
cool. It's very beautiful. So congratulations, guys. You
It
got
is.
the book.
It is.
Yeah.
This
I
is
think
so
that's
cool.
it.
Yeah. It's a
We
new
did
house.
it.
I loved it. If you guys really liked it, don't forget to hit the like button.
Yeah.
Come on. I still see
Please
18
do.
likes. I still see only 18 likes.
Yeah.
That's not cool, guys. Come on. Give
Share
us more
with your
likes.
community.
Yeah,
Yes.
share the
We're
word,
going to be
spread the
here every
word.
month.
Because then in February, we'll be back with another episode of Chá Pedagógico. So
Yeah.
to all of you who interacted with us here in the chat box, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of content, important content, top-notch content there other than Chá Pedagógico as well. Don't forget to hit the like button.
True.
This is going to help Chá Pedagógico grow and grow more than it is.
True.
Giselle, thank you so much for this amazing house. I love this house.
By the way,
so cool.
Big coincidence, Rudy. So we are celebrating our 5th year, our 5th anniversary, and Giselle is celebrating its 5th. Is it 55th? I think.
Yes.
55. Yes, 55th.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are 3 5s there for us. So it's a big coincidence that we partnered.
Oh, so we got.
this
I'm sorry,
year.
we got updated. Eric, thank you. See, the angels are here. Eric is an angel. Lydica, Jessica, you guys are angels. So we have 53 likes. Okay, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's
amazing.
I think So anyway, so for next episode, I think we're gonna think of a new record of likes. Okay, guys.
Yes.
So this one was 53 live. Of course, we're probably going to get more because you're going to watch the recording and you're going to share, spread the word. You can share the word on the social media as well. But then in February, we're going to come up with a new,
something geeky.
A new number.
And if I may, please send us messages, everyone, so that you tell us exactly what you want us to discuss, anything related to language teaching, learning in general, but language is our thing, right? And if you have an awesome idea, we'd love to talk about it live for you. Okay.
Yes. So once again, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy. Oh, yeah. The final result for the poll. Do you think we learn a language under external influences? 94% said yes. 5% said no. We talked about this. Thank you so much for participating, André. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Jessica, Eric, Lydica, Giselle, thank you so much. And I'll see you in February. Thank you, guys.
It was awesome.
André,
enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you in a month or so. Yeah. It's a leap year, by the way. Bye-bye, everyone.